In a small, quiet town surrounded by rolling hills and endless fields, there lived a boy named Ethan. He was 12 years old with messy brown hair that always seemed to stick out in odd directions no matter how much he tried to comb it down. His eyes were bright and curious, the kind that sparkled whenever he came up with an idea or spotted something interesting. Ethan wasn't like most kids his age. He didn't spend hours glued to video games or scrolling through social media. Instead, he loved exploring the outdoors, riding his bike around town and helping people whenever he could. To Ethan, kindness wasn't just something you did because it felt good. It was a way of life. One rainy afternoon as Ethan walked home from school, the sky was heavy with dark clouds, and the wind whipped through the trees, making them sway back and forth. Raindrops pelted the ground, forming puddles along the sidewalk. Ethan pulled his hood over his head and tightened the straps of his backpack, trying to stay dry. As he passed by the park near the edge of town, he noticed someone struggling under the weight of several grocery bags. It was an elderly man, hunched over and soaked to the bone. His umbrella had flipped inside out due to the strong gusts of wind, leaving him exposed to the rain. Ethan hesitated for only a moment before deciding to help. "Let me carry those bags for you," he called out, jogging toward the man. The old man looked up, startled at first, but then relief washed over his face. "Thank you, young man," he said, his voice shaky but warm. "I don't think I would have made it much farther." Ethan smiled brightly despite the rain soaking through his clothes. "Don't worry about it, I'm happy to help." He took two of the heavier bags, careful not to drop anything, and together they began walking toward the man's house. Along by the way, Ethan learned that the man's name was Mr. Grayson. He lived alone in a cottage at the edge of town and rarely interacted with others. People in the neighborhood whispered about him behind closed doors, calling him strange or eccentric. Some even claimed he was a recluse who spent all his time hoarding weird objects and reading dusty books. But Ethan didn't pay attention to such rumors. To him, Mr. Grayson was just another person who needed a little kindness. As they walked, Ethan noticed how slow and deliberate Mr. Grayson's steps were. Every few minutes, the old man would pause to catch his breath, leaning on his cane for support. Ethan offered to take all the bags, but Mr. Grayson insisted on carrying at least one himself. "You're already doing so much for me," he said, with a weak smile. "I wouldn't feel right letting you do everything." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached Mr. Grayson's cottage. It was a quaint little place, tucked away among tall oak trees. The windows were fogged up and ivy crept up the sides of the walls, giving it an almost magical appearance. Despite its charm, the house looked neglected, as though no one had taken care of it in years. Still, Ethan thought it suited Mr. Grayson perfectly, a quiet retreat for someone who preferred solitude. "Come inside and dry off," Mr. Grayson said, gesturing toward the door. "You've done me a great service today, and I'd like to thank you properly." Ethan nodded and followed him in, shaking off some of the rainwater from his jacket. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old books and herbs. The furniture was worn but cozy, and shelves lined every wall, crammed with books of all shapes and sizes. There were also peculiar trinkets scattered around, crystals, jars filled with strange powders, and intricate carvings that looked ancient. But what caught Ethan's attention most was the faint humming sound coming from somewhere deeper within the house. It was soft yet persistent, like the hum of electricity, but somehow more alive. Before he could ask about it, Mr. Grayson handed him a steaming cup of tea. "Here, drink this. It'll warm you up." Ethan accepted the cup gratefully and sipped the tea, which tasted surprisingly sweet. As they sat together in the living room, Mr. Grayson began telling stories. At first, they seemed like ordinary tales, memories of traveling to distant lands and meeting fascinating people. But as he spoke, the stories grew stranger. He talked about ancient civilizations hidden beneath the sands of deserts, cities built entirely of glass that floated above oceans, and forests where the trees whispered secrets to those who listened closely. Ethan listened intently, his imagination running wild with each word. Was Mr. Grayson simply spinning yarns to entertain him, or was there truth hidden beneath the surface? Before Ethan could decide, Mr. Grayson leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "What if I told you," he said softly, "that not everything in this world is what it seems?" Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. Before he could form a reply, Mr. Grayson stood up and motioned for him to follow. They walked down a narrow hallway until they reached a locked door at the very end. With trembling hands, Mr. Grayson unlocked it and pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit room. In the center of the room floated a glowing orb, suspended in midair as if defying gravity. It pulsed gently, casting soft waves of light across the walls. "This is no ordinary object," Mr. Grayson explained, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's a key, an artifact capable of unlocking doors between worlds. And now, I believe it has chosen you." Ethan stared at the orb, his heart racing. Him? A 12-year-old boy who had simply wanted to help someone in need. What could this mysterious object possibly want with him? Before he could ask any questions, Mr. Grayson carefully placed the orb into his hands. It felt warm to the touch, almost like it was alive. "Take good care of it," Mr. Grayson warned, "and never show it to anyone else. You'll understand why soon enough." That evening, as Ethan left the cottage and headed home, his mind buzzed with questions. Who was Mr. Grayson really? What was the orb, and why had it chosen him? Though he didn't have answers yet, one thing was certain. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the orb as he walked home that evening. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp and cool, carrying the earthy scent of wet leaves. His backpack felt heavier than usual, not because of his school books, but because of the glowing artifact nestled inside. Every step he took seemed to amplify its presence, as if it were whispering secrets only he could hear. He kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting someone to appear out of nowhere and demand to know what he was carrying. But the streets were empty, save for the occasional flicker of lamplight casting long shadows on the pavement. When Ethan finally reached his house, he slipped inside quietly, hoping not to disturb his parents. They were busy in the kitchen preparing dinner, their laughter echoing through the hallway. For once, Ethan was grateful for the noise. It meant they wouldn't notice how distracted he was. He hurried to his room, closing the door behind him before pulling the orb from his backpack. It hovered above his desk, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The faint hum filled the silence, creating an almost hypnotic rhythm. For hours, Ethan sat there staring at the orb, trying to make sense of everything Mr. Grayson had told him. "A key to other worlds," he muttered under his breath. It sounded impossible, like something straight out of a fantasy novel. Yet, here it was, glowing. In front of him, undeniable proof that magic, or whatever this was, existed. But why had Mr. Grayson given it to him? What made him special? The next morning, Ethan woke up feeling groggy but determined. He decided to return to Mr. Grayson's cottage after school, hoping to get more answers. All day he found it hard to focus on his lessons. His teacher droned on about math equations, but Ethan's mind kept drifting back to the orb. By the time the final bell rang, he practically sprinted out of the classroom, eager to uncover the truth. When he arrived at the cottage later that afternoon, however, something felt off. The gate creaked loudly as he pushed it open, and the usually tidy yard was littered with fallen branches and dead leaves. Even the house itself looked different, darker somehow. The windows were shuttered, and the ivy climbing the walls appeared lifeless, its vibrant green replaced by a dull gray. Ethan knocked on the door, but there was no answer. After waiting a few moments, he tried the handle. To his surprise, it turned easily, and the door swung open with a soft groan. Inside, the house was eerily silent. The shelves that had once been crammed with books and trinkets were now bare, leaving behind only streaks of dust where objects had rested for years. The air smelled stale, as though no one had been there in weeks. Ethan's heart sank. Where was Mr. Grayson? Had he left? Or worse, had something happened to him, Mr. Grayson? Ethan called out, his voice trembling slightly. There was no response. He moved cautiously through the rooms, searching for any sign of the old man. In the living room, he noticed a single book lying open on the coffee table. Its pages were yellowed, and brittle and strange symbols covered them, similar to the ones carved into the orb. Ethan picked it up carefully, running his fingers over the markings. Though he didn't understand the language, the symbols seemed familiar, as if they resonated deep within him. As he flipped through the pages, a folded piece of paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Bending down to pick it up, Ethan unfolded it and saw that it was a note written in shaky handwriting. It read, "Ethan, if you're reading this, then I've already gone. Trust your instincts. You are meant for greater things than you can imagine. The orb will guide you when I cannot. Do not fear the unknown. Embrace it. Remember, kindness is the truest form of power. Yours faithfully, Mr. Grayson." Ethan's hands trembled as he held the note. Gone? What did that mean? Was Mr. Grayson hiding somewhere, or had he truly disappeared? And what was he supposed to do now? The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Ethan's shoulders. He wasn't just holding an object anymore. He was carrying a mission, though. He didn't fully understand what it entailed. Determined to figure things out, Ethan returned home and began researching the symbols from the book. Over the next few days, he spent every spare moment in the town library, poring over encyclopedias, mythology books, and even old maps. At first, he didn't find much, just vague references to portals, ancient civilizations, and cosmic energies. But slowly, pieces of the puzzle started coming together. One evening, while flipping through a dusty tome about ley lines, mystical pathways believed to connect sacred sites across the globe, Ethan stumbled upon a map marked with coordinates. The symbols matched those etched into the orb. His heart raced as he realized what it might mean. The map wasn't just random drawings, it was a guide. Following the dotted lines, he traced a path that led directly to a dense forest on the outskirts of town, a place locals avoided due to superstitions about strange lights and eerie noises. The discovery excited and terrified Ethan at the same time. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to pretend none of this had ever happened. But another part, the part that had always been curious and brave, knew he couldn't turn away. Whatever secrets lay hidden in that forest, they were connected to the orb and, by extension, to him. If he didn't investigate, who would? That night, as Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he replayed everything in his mind. From the moment he'd helped Mr. Grayson carry groceries to discovering the orb and deciphering the map, it all felt like a dream. Yet, the orb resting on his desk reminded him that this was real. Tomorrow, he decided, he would venture into the forest. He didn't know what awaited him there, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. The next morning, Ethan woke up with a knot in his stomach. He had spent most of the night tossing and turning, unable to shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. The orb on his desk still pulsed softly, as if urging him forward. Its glow seemed brighter than before, almost like it was impatient for him to act. Ethan knew he couldn't delay any longer. Today was the day he would venture into the forest. After grabbing a quick breakfast, though he barely ate anything, he stuffed a flashlight, some snacks, and a notebook into his backpack. Then, carefully wrapping the orb in a cloth to keep it safe, he slipped it into an inside pocket. His parents were busy getting ready for work and didn't notice how distracted he was. "Be careful," his mom called out as she kissed him goodbye. "And don't stay out too late." Ethan nodded absent-mindedly, already halfway out the door. The walk to the forest edge felt longer than usual. As Ethan approached, he noticed how quiet everything became. Birds stopped chirping, leaves ceased rustling, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. It was as if nature itself was warning him not to go further. But Ethan pressed on, gripping the flashlight tightly in one hand while the other rested protectively over the orb. Once inside the trees, the world transformed. Sunlight barely filtered through the thick canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Roots twisted like gnarled fingers, and moss covered every surface, making the ground slippery underfoot. Ethan followed the map he'd memorized, counting steps and checking landmarks against the coordinates. Despite his determination, unease crept into his mind. What if he got lost? Or worse, What if something dangerous awaited him? After what felt like hours, Ethan finally reached the spot marked on the map, a small clearing surrounded by towering oaks. In the center stood an ancient stone archway, partially hidden by vines and moss. At first glance, it looked ordinary, a relic from another time, forgotten and crumbling. But as Ethan stepped closer, the orb began reacting violently. It vibrated in his pocket, growing warmer, until it felt like it might burn through the fabric. Startled, Ethan pulled it out and held it in front of him. The instant the orb touched the air, it floated upward, spinning rapidly and emitting a blinding flash of light. Ethan shielded his eyes, heart pounding. When the brightness faded, he lowered his arm and gasped. The archway was no longer just a pile of old stones. It glowed faintly, pulsing with energy. A shimmering portal had formed within the frame, swirling with colors that defied description. Blues shifted into purples, greens melted into golds, and streaks of silver darted across the surface like lightning. Ethan hesitated, frozen in awe and fear. This was it, the threshold to another world. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to run home and forget this ever happened. But deep down he knew he couldn't. Mr. Grayson's words echoed in his mind. Do not fear the unknown. Embrace it. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped toward the portal. The moment he crossed the threshold, the world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. When the chaos subsided, Ethan found himself standing in a breathtaking alien landscape. The sky above was painted in hues of lavender and indigo, dotted with 3 moons that cast a soft, ethereal glow. Towering trees with translucent leaves lined the horizon, their branches glowing faintly as if lit from within. Rivers of liquid silver snaked through the terrain, reflecting the multicolored sky. Everything shimmered with an otherworldly beauty that left Ethan speechless. As he took in his surroundings, movement caught his eye. From behind the trees emerged creatures unlike anything he'd ever seen. They were tall and slender, with skin that sparkled like starlight. Their large almond-shaped eyes glowed faintly, and they communicated silently, their thoughts flowing directly into Ethan's mind. "Welcome, traveler," one of them said telepathically. "We have been waiting for you." Ethan blinked in shock. "Waiting for me? Why?" The creature tilted its head, studying him intently. "You carry the key, the artifact capable of bridging worlds. You are pure of heart, chosen to safeguard the balance between dimensions. Few possess the courage and compassion required for such a task." "I'm just a kid," Ethan stammered. "I don't know anything about balancing dimensions or protecting worlds." "You underestimate yourself," the creature replied gently. "Your actions speak louder than your doubts. Your kindness opened the path that led you here. Trust in your abilities, and we will guide you when needed." Before Ethan could respond, more creatures joined them, forming a circle around him. One of them handed him a sleek metallic wristband engraved with intricate patterns, similar to those on the orb. "This device will allow you to open portals between worlds," they explained. "Use it wisely, for great power comes with great responsibility." Ethan accepted the gift, feeling both honored and overwhelmed. He wanted to ask more questions about the Guardians, the orb, and what exactly was expected of him. But the creatures began fading away, dissolving into beams of light that shot upward into the sky. Within moments, he was alone again. Taking a deep breath, Ethan activated the wristband, which hummed softly in response. Following the instructions given to him telepathically, he focused on returning to Earth. Another portal opened before him, and with a final glance at the stunning alien world, he stepped through. Back in the forest clearing, the stone archway returned to its dormant state, looking like nothing more than a pile of rocks. Ethan sat down heavily on the damp ground, trying to process everything that had just happened. He wasn't just a regular boy anymore. He was someone entrusted with protecting entire worlds. The thought terrified him, but also filled him with a strange sense of purpose. On the way home, Ethan noticed subtle changes in himself. The orb reacted differently now, responding to his emotions and thoughts. Trees bent slightly toward him as he passed, as though acknowledging his presence. Even animals seemed drawn to him, following him curiously before darting away. It was as if the universe itself recognized the shift in his role. By the time Ethan reached his house, exhaustion weighed heavily on him. He collapsed onto his bed, clutching the orb close. Sleep came quickly, but his dreams were vivid and surreal. He saw visions of distant planets, vast oceans of stars, and civilizations thriving among the cosmos. Each dream felt like a glimpse into the responsibilities awaiting him. When he woke up the next morning, the world outside his window looked the same, yet everything felt different. Ethan knew his adventures were only beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready, or at least he hoped he was. Ethan's life changed in ways he could never have imagined after his first encounter with the alien guardians. Though he tried to act normal, pretending that everything was fine, he couldn't ignore the strange occurrences happening around him. Lights flickered whenever he passed under street lamps, animals followed him wherever he went, and even the weather seemed to react to his mood. It was as if the world itself had taken notice of the responsibility resting on his shoulders. First, Ethan kept the wristband hidden beneath his sleeve, afraid someone might notice it. But over time, he grew more comfortable using it. He discovered that by focusing on specific thoughts or locations, he could summon a portal almost instantly. Each time he practiced, the process became smoother, as though the device was learning to sync with his mind. Despite this newfound confidence, he remained cautious. After all, opening portals wasn't something you did casually. It came with risks. One evening, while lying on his bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan found himself thinking about Mr. Grayson. Where had he gone? Why had he left without saying goodbye? These questions haunted him, gnawing at the edges of his mind. Determined to find answers, Ethan decided to use the wristband to revisit the alien world. Maybe the Guardians knew something they hadn't told him before. The next day after school, Ethan returned to the forest clearing. Pulling out the wristband, he focused on the shimmering alien landscape he'd seen during his previous visit. Within seconds, the air rippled and a glowing portal appeared before him. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped through. On the other side, he was greeted by the same breathtaking sight. Luminous trees, rivers of liquid silver, and skies painted in vibrant hues. This time, however, the atmosphere felt different, charged with tension. The creatures who had welcomed him before approached cautiously, their glowing eyes filled with concern. "You've returned," one of them said telepathically. "But beware, the balance is shifting." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his heart skipping a beat. "There are those who seek to exploit the multiverse for their own gain," another guardian explained. "They travel between dimensions, siphoning resources and leaving destruction in their wake. If unchecked, their actions will destabilize reality itself." Ethan's stomach churned. "How can I stop them?" "Your role is not just to protect, but also to confront threats when necessary," the first creature replied. "We cannot interfere directly, but we can guide you. Trust your instincts. They are stronger than you realize." Before Ethan could ask more questions, the ground trembled slightly. A shadow loomed overhead, blotting out the colorful sky. Looking up, Ethan saw a massive ship descending from above. Its sleek metallic surface glinted menacingly, and sharp spines jutted out like claws. It hovered silently, exuding an aura of danger. The Guardians quickly formed a protective circle around Ethan. "They have found us," one whispered urgently. "Prepare yourself." Panic surged through Ethan's veins, but he forced himself to stay calm. Remembering the lessons from his earlier visits, he activated the wristband and created a small barrier of energy around himself. To his surprise, the device responded immediately, forming a translucent shield that crackled with power. The ship unleashed a beam of energy toward the group. Ethan braced himself, expecting the worst. But the Guardians raised their arms in unison, deflecting the attack with ease. They weren't just observers. They were warriors, capable of defending their realm. Still, Ethan knew he couldn't rely solely on them. This was his fight too, Summoning every ounce of courage, Ethan focused on the ship and used the wristband to open a portal directly beneath it. The sudden shift in gravity caught the vessel off guard, causing it to tilt violently. Seizing the opportunity, the Guardians launched a counterattack, firing beams of light that struck the ship's hull. Sparks flew as the attackers scrambled to retreat. Within moments, the ship disappeared into the sky, leaving behind only silence. Ethan let out a shaky breath, his legs trembling beneath him. He had faced danger head-on and survived. But the victory was bittersweet. The invaders would return, and next time they might be stronger. The Guardians turned to Ethan, their expressions unreadable. "You have proven yourself worthy," one said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Greater challenges lie ahead." Ethan nodded solemnly. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to protect the balance." Returning to Earth, Ethan felt a mix of pride and unease. He had taken his first step as a true Guardian, but the weight of his responsibilities pressed heavily on him. Back in his room, he stared at the wristband, now glowing faintly. It was no longer just a tool. It was a symbol of trust given to him by beings far greater than himself. Over the following days, Ethan continued honing his skills. He practiced creating portals, manipulating energy fields, and deciphering the orb's mysterious symbols. Slowly, he began to feel more confident in his abilities, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching him. Late one night, as Ethan lay in bed, he heard a soft tapping sound coming from outside his window. Startled, he got up and peeked through the curtains. What he saw made his blood run cold. A shadowy figure stood in his backyard, cloaked in darkness. In its hand was a glowing object that looked suspiciously like a fragment of the orb. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed the wristband and quietly opened a portal to the forest clearing. Once there, he summoned another portal, this time leading back to the alien world. He needed guidance, and fast. When he arrived, the Guardians were waiting for him. Their expressions darkened as soon as they saw the fragment. "So, it has begun," one muttered grimly. "The fragments hold immense power, but they are unstable. Whoever possesses them seeks to unravel the fabric of reality." Ethan's mind raced. How many fragments are there, and how do I stop them? "There are 5, and the Guardian replied. "Each represents a piece of the key. Together they form the complete artifact. Your mission is clear. Retrieve the fragments before they fall into the wrong hands." With renewed determination, Ethan vowed to fulfill his duty. He didn't know what dangers awaited him, but he was ready to face them. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what it meant to carry the weight of the world, or rather worlds, on his shoulders. Ethan's journey had taken him far beyond the quiet life he once knew. No longer was he just a boy who helped an old man carry groceries. He was now a guardian of dimensions, entrusted with protecting the delicate balance between worlds. Each day brought new challenges, but also new lessons about courage, sacrifice, and the power of kindness. Though the weight of responsibility often felt overwhelming, Ethan reminded himself why he had been chosen: because he cared deeply for others and refused to stand idly by when help was needed. After learning about the 5 fragments of the key, Ethan threw himself into the mission with unwavering determination. Armed with his wristband and guided by the orb's mysterious symbols, he traveled across dimensions in search of the scattered pieces. Along the way, he encountered breathtaking landscapes, strange creatures, and ancient civilizations that tested his resolve. Some welcomed him as a hero, while others saw him as a threat. Through it all, Ethan relied on his instincts and the wisdom of the alien guardians to navigate the dangers. The first fragment wasn't hard to find. It lay hidden in a crystalline cave deep beneath a volcanic planet, guarded by fiery serpents made entirely of molten rock. Using the wristband, Ethan created a shield of energy to protect himself from their searing heat. After a tense standoff, he managed to retrieve the fragment, feeling its raw power surge through him. The second fragment required more cunning than strength. It was locked inside a labyrinthine city suspended in the clouds, where gravity shifted unpredictably. Ethan solved intricate puzzles and outsmarted mechanical sentinels before finally claiming the glowing shard, but not every encounter ended so smoothly. During his quest for the third fragment, Ethan faced betrayal. On a desolate desert world, he met a group of nomads who claimed to seek peace among dimensions. At first, they offered guidance, helping him locate the fragment buried beneath shifting sands. But when Ethan unearthed it, their true intentions became clear. They wanted the key's power for themselves. Betrayal stung sharply, but Ethan refused to let anger cloud his judgment. With quick thinking and the help of the wristband, he escaped their trap, vowing never to trust blindly again. By the time Ethan reached the fourth fragment, he had grown stronger, not just physically but emotionally. He learned to adapt to each challenge, drawing on his experiences to overcome obstacles. This fragment was guarded by a colossal creature resembling a dragon, its scales shimmering like starlight. Instead of fighting, Ethan approached cautiously, speaking telepathically through the bond forged by the orb. To his surprise, the creature listened. It revealed that it had been corrupted by dark forces seeking to exploit its power. With gentle persuasion and the healing energy of the key, Ethan freed the creature from its torment, earning both the fragment and a powerful ally. Finally, only one fragment remained, the most dangerous of them all. According to the Guardians, it was held by the leader of the invaders Ethan had encountered earlier, a ruthless being known as Kalian. Kalian sought to unite the fragments and use their combined power to reshape reality according to his twisted vision. If he succeeded, entire dimensions would collapse, plunging countless worlds into chaos. The final confrontation took place on a barren moon orbiting a dying star. Its surface was cracked and scarred, littered with remnants of battles fought long ago. As Ethan stepped through the portal, he felt a chill run down his spine. The air was thick with tension, and the horizon glowed faintly with an ominous red hue. Kalian awaited him atop a jagged cliff, holding the last fragment aloft. His presence radiated menace, his eyes burning with malice. "So, the boy has come," Kalian sneered, his voice echoing like thunder. "Did you really think you could stop me?" Ethan stood tall, clutching the orb tightly. "I may be just a boy, but I've seen what happens when people care enough to fight for what's right. You won't win." With a roar, Kalian attacked, unleashing waves of dark energy. Ethan countered with bursts of light generated by the EO wristband, creating a dazzling display of power. The battle raged fiercely, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Just when it seemed like Ethan might falter, the orb began glowing brighter than ever before. Memories of his journey flooded his mind. Helping Mr. Grayson, befriending the Guardians, overcoming every obstacle along the way. These memories fueled him, giving him strength he didn't know he possessed. Summoning all his focus, Ethan activated the full potential of the wristband. A massive portal opened above them, pulling Kalian into the void. Desperate, the villain tried to resist, but the combined energy of the 4 fragments Ethan carried overwhelmed him. With a final cry, Kalian vanished, leaving behind the 5th fragment. Exhausted but victorious, Ethan gathered the shards and fused them together using the orb's energy. The completed key shone brilliantly, its light piercing the darkness of the moon. In that moment, Ethan felt a profound connection to every dimension, their hopes, fears, and dreams intertwined with his own. When he returned to Earth, life resumed its normal pace, or at least, outwardly, it did. Ethan continued attending school, spending time with friends and helping those in need. But now he carried a secret. The wristband remained hidden beneath his sleeve, ready to spring into action whenever duty called. The Guardians kept watch over him, offering guidance when necessary, but mostly allowing him to forge his own path. Word of Ethan's bravery spread among the multiverse, earning him respect and admiration. Yet he remained humble, knowing that true heroism wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about doing what was right even when no one was watching. As he gazed at the stars one evening, he felt a sense of purpose he'd never known before. What started as a simple act of kindness had transformed him into someone destined for greatness. And so, Ethan's adventures continued, each one teaching him valuable lessons about courage, sacrifice, and the boundless potential of a kind heart. Though the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges, he faced it head-on, ready to protect the balance between worlds, for as long as it took.